since the Enlightenment, since the 18th century, considerable skepticism has emerged against the law of cause and effect, the law of causality. If, for example, you've read Bertrand Russell's little booklet, Why I Am Not a Christian, he said, as a boy growing up, he was deeply impressed by the argument for the existence of God that was based upon the need for a first cause, based upon the law of causality. And so, as a young boy, he embraced the idea of the existence of God, until he read an essay written by the philosopher John Stuart Mill, who raised this basic objection against causal thinking. Mill said it this way: if everything requires a cause, then manifestly God would require a cause, and whoever caused God would require a cause, so that you can't reason back to God on the basis of the principle that everything must have a cause. Now, when Bertrand Russell read that essay at age 17, he said it was an epiphany for him, and he realized that the law of cause and effect would not lead you to the conclusion of a first cause, but would lead you on an endless regress that would get you, in the final analysis, not to God, but nowhere. And so he, therefore, denied the utility of arguing for the existence of God on the basis of the law of cause and effect. Now let me just respond to that very briefly and very simply, that here's one of those classic examples where Homer nods. John Stuart Mill was unarguably a brilliant philosopher, very well trained in logic and skilled in analytical thought and cognition, who made a fundamental, foundational error in his thinking with respect to causality. The primary error was an error in definition. He assumed that the definition of the law of causality is simply everything must have a cause. Now, if that indeed were the classical law of causality, then his criticism of causal reasoning back to a first cause would be valid. Let me put it in simple terms. I heard the story of two little boys that were having a discussion. And the first little boy said to the second little boy, "Where did the trees come from?" And his friend said, "God made the trees." And then he said, "Well, where did the flowers come from?" And his friend said, "God made the flowers." Then his friend said, "Well, where did you come from?" And he said, "God made me." And then his buddy said, "Well, who made God?" And his partner said, "God made himself." Boy, that little kid is profound when he says, who made God? And he says, "God made himself." No, 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 no. Even God can't make himself. And the point is, we don't have to have an antecedent cause for God. God, as Aristotle rightly understood, is an uncaused cause. And you don't have to provide a cause for an eternal being, as we will see in the course of this study. But just now, by way of shorthand, let me just say that the error is in the definition. The law of causality has never said that everything has to have a cause. Rather, the law of causality, stated properly, says every effect must have an antecedent cause. Every effect must have an antecedent cause. Now, Had John Stuart Mill been working with that definition of causality, he would never have gotten himself into the mess he did and never would have led Bertrand Russell astray into that morass of confusion, which, by the way, that principle that Bertrand Russell, as brilliant as he was, adopted at age 17, he maintained till the day he died. That error continued in his thinking. Because the definition of the law of causality, again, is not that everything must have an effect, because if everything had to have an effect, had to have a cause, God indeed would have to have a cause. But the law simply says every effect must have a cause. And if we could find something that is not an effect, that is something that has the power of being within itself and is from eternity, obviously that being would not be an effect. And when we define the character of God, we say that God is a self-existing, eternal being who is independent, underived, not contingent, but he's eternal. He is not caused because he is not an effect. Only things that are made are effects. Now, if we look at this definition, we see, and I get just a little bit technical here, that this definition, every effect must have a cause, is a statement that we say is formally true. Not formerly, but formally. You know, that is to say, it is a formal truth. Now, what is a formal truth? A formal truth is a truth, I'm trying to make this easier, and I'm going to make it more abstract. A formal truth is a truth that is analytically true. Whoops. I'm trying to simplify and I'm making it worse, right? If it's formally true, it's analytically true. What that means is that it's true by definition. That if you analyze this statement, every effect must have a cause. Just by analyzing the words and their relationship in the statement, you will see that the statement not only is true, but by definition has to be true. An analytical statement would be one like this. A bachelor is an unmarried man. Now, in an analytical statement like that, a bachelor is an unmarried man. You have the subject, which is the word bachelor. And then you say something about the bachelor to describe him. You predicate something about the bachelor. And what you say is the bachelor is an unmarried man. But what do you find out about the bachelor in the phrase unmarried man that you didn't already know with the word bachelor? See, in an analytical statement, there's no new information given in the predicate from what's already there in the subject. If I tell you, let me say, a triangle has 3 sides. Is that true or not? Of course it's true. It has to be true because a triangle by definition has 3 sides. Just like a bachelor by definition is an unmarried man. Now, not all unmarried men are bachelors. Some are widowers, right? But all bachelors are unmarried men. So what we say that something is formally true or analytically true, another way of saying is it's logically true. It's true by definition. Now again, let's look more carefully at the definition. If we say every effect, and just stop right there, and we introduce the word effect. What is an effect? How would you define an effect? What is an effect?
Something that happened.
Something that happened, or something that
It's going to happen.
or if it will happen, that's true. but something that has been made, something that has been produced, right? Or to use the language, something that has been caused. See, an effect, by definition, is something that has been caused by something else. Now, what is a cause? What is a cause? What does a cause do? It brings some kind of result. And what do we call that result? An effect. That's right. You can't have a cause that doesn't cause anything. What a cause causes is an effect. So you can't have a cause without an effect, and anything that is identified as an effect, by definition, must have a cause. So that in a very real sense, this statement, every effect must have a cause, is just simply a mental extension of the law of non-contradiction. Because something cannot be an effect and not be an effect at the same time in the same relationship. Something cannot be a cause. You can't have a cause without an effect, and you can't have an effect without a cause, because otherwise you have a contradiction. Now, the most primary answer we give to reality, if I say, why is this carpet here in this room? The simplest answer I can say is because. That's not going to satisfy you. You're going to want to push me a little bit further, and you're going to say, because why? Well, I'm going to say, well, because the director of this studio wanted to construct a set that would have the look of a study or a den, and so he went out and got this old carpeting, and he put it on the floor here as part of the set. So now I'm giving you more of the complex reasons behind the presence of this carpet that is now underneath my feet. Okay? Now, my director didn't cause the carpet. If I said what caused the carpet, then we'd have to go back to the manufacturer and all of that sort of thing. But we understand the use of that language at a very elementary way. One of the first things a parent learns how to say to a child when the child asks a question is, because. That's the answer. In other words, we're saying that flower has a cause. That tree has a cause. Something has produced it. Because we also understand that something cannot come out of nothing. Now, again, I'm going to ask you to put your thinking caps on, because I'm going to do some close work with your minds here. When I say this is a formal principle, we're saying that it doesn't teach us anything directly about reality. It doesn't tell us that there are causes out there in the real world. It doesn't tell us that there are effects out there in the real world. Maybe everything in the world is eternal and uncaused. I don't believe that that's the case, but I'm saying hypothetically. We're sitting here in this room, and I'm saying there's all kinds of things outside of this room. There are cars and trucks and planes and bees and trees and all the rest. And I can say this to you for sure, that if any or all of those things that I've just listed, trucks and trees and cars and all of that, are effects, then we know for sure that they have what? Causes. Now, maybe they are not effects, but the principle is, the logical principle is, if something is an effect, it must have what? It must have a cause. So that if you can establish that something is indeed an effect, then you have established that it must have some kind of antecedent cause.